From St. Louis Public Radio. This is Politically Speaking.
Republican James Mendrick is currently behind in the primary polls, but he believes his lengthy experience in law enforcement make him the right person to challenge incumbent Democrat J.B. Pritzker in the governor's race. Mendrick is currently a two-term sheriff in suburban DuPage County in the Chicagoland. He believes his track record of being a Republican sheriff elected in a blue county gives him not only the pragmatism needed to win a statewide contest in Illinois, but also an understanding of public safety and the criminal justice system that his GOP opponents just don't have. On this episode of Politically Speaking, I asked Mendrick how he stands out in the four-way primary and why he believes a Republican can win a statewide contest in Illinois. Let's hit the music.
This is the Politically Speaking podcast, an in-depth examination of Missouri and Illinois politics.
The instant we got to Illinois, we joined the Green Party. This was 2000.
So I've tried to push for those that I think are honest and really care about the future of the city.
You know, this wasn't a path that I thought I would choose in 2012 when I was able to win the closest Republican victory in the nation.
If it's something that will help Southern Illinois, I'll work with him on it. If there's something he's doing wrong, then you got to fight him on it.
I believe very strongly in the Second Amendment. I believe less government is better, and I believe local control is better.
I choose to fight for working families and for union members.
Welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm St. Louis Public Radio's Metro East reporter Will Bauer, and joining us is one of the four candidates vying for the Republican nomination in Illinois' governor's race.
James Mendrick, the current DuPage County Sheriff running for Illinois Governor. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for being here. And maybe before we get into all the issues and the campaign and whatnot, I wanted to give you an opportunity for you to tell us more about who you are. So if you can, fill us in on your background.
Sure. So I'm a lifelong resident of Illinois. I married my high school sweetheart, Cindy, who's a nurse for 30 years. I met her in sophomore year of high school, so I've been with the same girl my whole life. Happily married, 2 kids. I was actually, you never know where you're going to go. And I'm a very religious man. I feel that God puts you where you need to be. I never planned on even becoming a policeman. I was a sculptor, a student teacher for ceramics, photographer, and literature is what I went to school for. Graduated, and I was planning on working in advertising, and that's when computer graphics started, and that took over that whole field, and I wasn't a computer programmer. But my dad was a police chief in a village called Oak Park in Cook County, and he convinced me, why don't you start applying to some police places while you're waiting for that art job to land. In 1996, I got hired in the DuPage County Sheriff's Office, and now I've been there 30 years. I got through the ranks pretty fast. I got promoted to corporal after 2 years, sergeant at 4 years, and then I did 6 years where I was in charge of the financial, the detectives, the detective division running the financial investigation. So for 6 years, anybody that was doing anything with money, it was me and my group of detectives that would investigate and get charges for money laundering, cartels, retail theft rings, all that kind of stuff. So my forte in law enforcement was always financial crimes. So much so that when I became sheriff, I actually invented, incepted, and implemented the first digital forensics laboratory, and we placed that right next to our crime laboratory where we can crack any device, whether it's an old Commodore 64 or it's your newest Android or Apple. We pretty much do what we call hard drive acquisitions, where we clone hard drives, put the originals away so they're not tampered with, and then we use the clone to investigate where all the money was spent. So after that, I did 3 years as our auditor at the sheriff's office. It's called the accreditation manager. Did that for 3 years. That wasn't so fun, but I learned a lot. Then I was the chief and under sheriff, and I've run our budget for 12 years now. We run an $80 million budget. I have 504 static employees, about 300 contractors, so I supervise around 800 people. I do all the contract negotiations, the arbitrated awards, so I write contracts. That's another big thing that I do. So I think, we really wanted to grow and change what we did in DuPage and do some things now that I look could be replicated statewide. One is our rehabilitative program within our correctional facility. 80% of the people who come in are high on substance, half are self-medicating for mental health issues. So we do full drug detoxification, drug recovery, methadone, Suboxone, one-on-one psychiatric work. We have 200 counselors, educators, and teachers that teach 80 courses per week, anger management, criminal thinking, We do gang tattoo removal, and then we do job training. I actually let College of DuPage build a college within my jail. So we're a satellite of College of DuPage, college credits. We do GEDs also, because half the people that come into my facility can't read or write. So we've been very successful. All these job training programs, welding, tiling, drywalling, sanitation, have brought our recidivism rates down from 75 to 15%, and our opioid numbers down from 90 to 20. So it's been a very successful program. For every $1 we spend in rehabilitation, we're saving 19 in incarceration costs. So we're probably saving DuPage, if I estimated it, probably about $10 million a year just in housing fees for incarceration. We did the same thing with patrol. We created something called merit. After COVID, the cops were gone. Everyone was fleeing the job. Instead of getting 500 applicants, I was hoping to get 50. And we ran about 44 headcount down for the better part of 4 years. So we needed a way to consolidate, increase headcount, and we couldn't do it by bringing new people in. It was just too hard, and everybody who could retire is retiring. So we made Merit, the Metropolitan Emergency Response and Investigative Team, which we took 40 police departments in the sheriff's office. If it's not a 911 call for service, if something major like a SWAT call out, accident reconstructionist, murder investigation, anything large, we consolidated all these entities into one big unit. So now you get a blended force of everybody working together. We bulk purchase together to make things cheaper, because law enforcement can be very expensive. And we respond. So you're getting 3 times more cops twice as fast without raising headcount, just by having intercooperation. We train, use the same tools, and we respond together. So those are like some of the highlights, that I've done in my job, and why I think I can replicate these at a statewide level.
And I find it so interesting. You're probably one of a few people that have an advertising degree and work in law enforcement. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, tell me more about why you want to run for governor.
So there's really 2 main things that have changed my job and what I do and made me feel completely ineffective at times as a policeman, sheriff, any law enforcement. The first one is the Safety Act. The Safety Act was a critical blow to our profession. I know they like to call it no cash bail, and the reason they term it no cash bail when it's really the Safety Act, no cash bail is the only part that they can really defend. I mean, everyone can agree that you shouldn't be able to buy your way out of jail, and that a rich person shouldn't be able to get out when a poor person can't afford to get out through a bail process. But what it did, I told you about our rehabilitation. So now think about it, 80% of the people, as I come in on substance. Now, those people, a lot of them aren't held. Like, let's say you were dealing a brick of fentanyl right now and you got arrested for it. As soon as you saw a bond court, you'd be out. We don't hold for drug dealing anymore. I shouldn't say we, the bond courts don't. There's a line that they call a threat to society or a threat to a specifically named person. If you don't meet those 2 criteria, you don't go to jail anymore. So many of the people, and again, 80% come in on substance, like I said, now we'll have them for about 2 hours. They'll see a bond court judge and leave while they're detoxing, or in street terms, tweaking or jonesing. So we interview a lot of our inmates, or actually all of them, to capture data, and they all say the same thing. They'd rather be beaten up and kicked and all these other things and then go through detox. That's really hard. That's why people don't quit heroin and fentanyl. So they get so physically and mentally addicted that they can't take the pain. From what's described to me by inmates, it's like dying over and over and over again. So it only stands to reason, if you hold somebody 2 hours to where they're starting to detox and then you let them go, they're probably not going to make good judgment. And what happens is they'll do anything to get their next fix. So they usually commit crime and get arrested again. And by the time they actually go to court, because everything's a ticket now, by the time they go to court, they usually have like 3 or 4 charges on them. Now they're going to go for 20 years to IDOC. So we found out the Safety Act actually promulgates long-term incarceration. And on the flip side of that, a lot of people nowadays don't have valid addresses, and that's the other part. That's the sanctuary state. That exacerbates the Safety Act, because now when we say, where do you live? And they say a tent, where do I send a court notice? There's nowhere to send it. So that means you're going to have these things called FTAs, failure to appears. And when you get picked up on those warrants, now you go to jail. So my jail is still at the same capacity it was before COVID now, because I have the failure to appear warrants filling up my jail. And at the same time, the people we're letting go are going to long-term incarceration. So the Safety Act has failed us. And, I was there in the beginning. I asked Slaughter and Harmon to add just 3 words, and that would have helped my situation a lot. And that would have been remand for rehabilitation. If we could have just gotten those, and they promised they were going to put those words in the Safety Act, but then they never did. So now you go to the sanctuary state part. This is the other part that exacerbates the Safety Act issue. This is an interesting thing that we're dealing with now because we've lost 800,000 people in the last census. And now they're saying that the last estimate is we're about up to 700,000 illegal immigrants. So we've taken out the taxpayers and replaced them with tax takers, people who are dependent on the government. And when you look at, like let's take what's hot right now, the raids, right? Everyone's talking about ICE raids. And what people don't understand, and this is because the media has branded the Safety Act, sanctuary state, safety, sanctuary, nice connotations, right? Until you talked about assault weapons, then it's all rough talk. But that's me. Again, I came from advertising. That's media branding, right? You brand the topics that you want to be popular. And right now, J.B. Pritzker's in a big fight with Donald Trump, and he needs those ICE raids to continue to give him his pulpit. Now, here's why I say the raids are not the federal government's fault. They're not Tom Homan's fault. They're not Donald Trump's fault. They're actually J.B. Pritzker's fault, and this is why. If we would have just removed the sanctuary state, now mind you, we're violating federal law by having the sanctuary state. We're losing $2 billion a year in federal grants because of it. And when the state law and the federal law conflict, the federal law actually prevails. It's supposed to, anyway. So if you go to before we had the Safety Act, if we just got rid of it today, and it could be done in one day as an executive order, and that is my plan on first day to get rid of the sanctuary state. So if we got rid of it and gave ICE access to the jails, we would stop the ICE raids immediately. And this is a business I know well because this is law enforcement. This is a head count. This is how they would have to deploy. They proactively right now have no access to the jail. So they have to proactively go into wherever their targets are. That could be a Home Depot, could be a school, wherever the person that they're looking for exists. That's how they have to do their job. But if they had access to the jails, it would all change because Illinois is a big state. I've been now to 85 counties out of 102 in the state. You can drive 7 hours in Illinois and still be in Illinois. I mean, it goes on forever. So in that 7-hour-long state, there's 92 jails, right? So when we call ICE, it's called an ICE hold. It's a detainer. You call ICE, it's an ICE hold. They just do a process. They get a consulate on the phone. They talk to the detainee, determine if they're running from a crime in their previous country. They do a background check. Then they see if the new crime is worthy of deportation, which they never deported like retail thefts and small stuff like that. It's always been the bigger crimes. Then we would call ICE, and it would be what we call a warm handoff. There's no danger. There's no raids. So if ICE was given access, and mind you, when we call ICE, they have 3 days to come pick them up. It's called an ICE hold. If they don't pick them up in 3 days, the whole boat then they have to pay for reimburse. That's food, shelter, all that kind of stuff. So they're pretty diligent on doing their pickups. So they would have to do pickups probably once a week. And if they were having to do pickups at 92 jails across a 7-hour-long state, every single week they would have to add 20% more to their manpower just to be a reactive transport unit. And you wouldn't see an ICE. That's why you've never seen ICE raids before, because they've never been necessary. And when Bruce Rauner brought in the sanctuary state, it didn't have the strength because J.B. Pritzker has empowered it twice now. But it was more of a political stunt at the time because there were no open borders. But when Joe Biden had 4 years of open borders, that's when all these people started flooding in and the Texas buses and all that kind of stuff. And I will tell you, Trump is telling the truth when he says they emptied our jails. That rehabilitation process that I just told you about in the jail, we teach that nationally at the National Sheriff's Association. So when I teach that, I also go to other classes. And I go to the classes for the border sheriffs. In the first year of Joe Biden's open borders, they were showing us videos where Border Patrol was somewhere else processing people, and there's all these holes in the fence. I watched personally 200 people in orange jumpsuits, they still had the uniforms on, just walking through an open border. I saw tactical teams in camouflage with weapons walking through open borders. They had video of this and showed it at these classes. So that's the first year of the open borders. So that's the criminal element. And that means that there is a really smart way to do this is access to the jails, because the people who commit crimes typically recidivate. Like our recidivism rate, we always brag, it went from 75 to 15%, but the people that are coming in here, will most likely offend at some point in time again. And if ICE was going to all these jails, there would be no proactive raids. So these raids are designed as a political tool to create a fight with the president because J.B. Pritzker wants to run for president.
And I know that was, right, some of the internal beef in DHS was Tom Homan had been an advocate for doing it the other way, whereas Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino had said we need to do these raids. And there was even some internal tension. And to follow up on the Safety Act, because I know talked to Ted Dabrowski and Darren Bailey, they're both in favor of completely abolishing it. It sounds like you may have some parts of it that you think are workable.
So,
or do you want to get rid of it completely?
I would love to abolish it as well, though, but I'm a pragmatist. And, while the sanctuary state is something you can executive order away because we're violating a law by having it, it's not that easy with the Safety Act. That's going to be legislation. And if I could get away with eliminating it completely and get that kind of support, heck yeah, I would. But I think you also have to realize that it's probably not going to be that easy. So as a fallback position, there's a fix that will fix a lot of it, the criminality. There's a lot of bad stuff for the police in there that I would love to get out, not being able to review your videotape before writing your report and stuff like that. It's a horrible thing that they're doing to the police. But the one thing that could fix it is simply adding in, instead of having to let people go for all these violations, we have IUCR codes. It's universal reporting codes that said this is the crime you committed. So I think if we made the felony categories and the multiple offense misdemeanors detainable, then that would fix it. And then the bond court judge, instead of saying I had to let them go because of the Safety Act, they'd say I had to detain them because of the Safety Act. They reach these certain UCR code crime categories that we have to hold on. That'd be the easy fix internally. And I think that I could get immediate support from the Democrats and Republicans, because that would be a pure way to just stop the safety stuff. We can talk about the rest of the Safety Act, and I definitely want to remove as much of it as possible because I don't believe that act is a safety act. We call it the Unsafety Act. I mean, that's the nickname we have for it. But you have to be realistic when you take these positions on, too, and know you can do some things, and some things are going to take some more time. And I think right now, for starters, I think we meet in the middle where we all agree we don't want rapists and murderers to be let go. We don't want drug dealers to be let go. And I think the way to do it is start with your felonies, multiple offense misdemeanors, and that at least control some of the crime aspects of it.
And so just so I understand you, that would be in terms of the bail part where you would raise the threshold, or rather lower the threshold maybe from where it's written now, so that if I'm accused of something where maybe there's a victim, there's no option for me to get out. Just like it would be, right. I think, the way it's currently written, if I'm accused of murder, you can't get out.
Correct.
Whereas in the previous system, if I had enough money, I could get out if I'm accused of murder.
Yeah, and this would be not bringing cash bail back, because that will be a sticky wicket, but making it offense code detaining, that solves the problem, because then you pick your crime categories that you think should be detainable. Those codes are now detainable crimes.
Let's move on to affordability, which seems like it's going to be one of the big themes of the 2026 election. So how would you, as potentially Illinois' next governor, work to make life affordable for Illinoisans?
Okay, so there's going to be a few tiers to this, but I'm going to start on what we were just talking about, because we didn't talk about the financial aspect of the Safety Act, or the sanctuary state. So we're still $1.6 billion on the hook for health care. $740 million this year just for maintenance and link cards and housing. Just like I said before, how we save all that money in incarceration because housing is so expensive, and people are expensive. With my 504 person head count, 82% of my budget is people. It's head count. And so now when you take people and bring them in and they're dependent on the government, they're getting housing, they're getting shelter, food. Now we're gonna be paying for college. These things are it's the most unaffordable thing that we have. What we've done is taken a population of 700,000 people, put it on top of our existing populations that compete. So again, I think by getting rid of that Safety Act, that's going to save a huge amount of money, just at billions of dollars in that one thing. Another thing that really has caught my eye are these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations who are given money. And the funny thing is, everybody keeps saying, yeah, they're non-auditable or non-foyable. And again, I write my contracts for, the second big, that's DuPage County is the second biggest county in the state. So it's almost 1 million people. And when I look at where this money's going, like Guitars Over Guns got $2 million. I think it was a A Little League team got a total of $600,000 for their Little League team. Lincoln College got, I think, $500,000. And I went to Lincoln College for my 2-year degree. Great school, but it closed down in 2022. So I don't know what the $500,000 was for. I even did a site check and couldn't find a human being on that campus. So, when there's not, they're not foiable and they're not auditable because they're leaving the government, going into private coffers, that's by design. Because all you have to do is say, if I'm going to grant you money, you will be subject to audit. That's one sentence in a contract. And you do performance metrics. If I'm going to give you $100,000, I'm going to give you $100,000 on January 1st. And then in 3 months, we're going to talk about your next $25,000. You have to show me your performance metrics. And then in 3 more months, the 6-month mark, we're going to give you another $25,000 and you're going to show me your performance metrics. And that's how these are supposed to work. So the fact that they're unfoiable and unauditable, that's by design. That means they purposely didn't write in those factors so they can get rid of money without people knowing what they're doing with it. Then, you know what? There's another state rep candidate that just FOIA'd the Department of Family Services. And the question was, how many people are getting Medicaid that has not furnished a Social Security number? So that number on the FOIA ended up being 22,000 people, and then they average about 11,000 in awards per year, which is, I think, $242 million. And that's Medicaid fraud, because if you didn't give a Social Security number, it's most likely that you're here illegally because you're required to give the Social Security number. And now the FOIAs are starting for the Department of Children and Family Services, Children's Center, and all these other entities that give out Medicaid benefits. I think we're going to see kind of like a Minnesota-type fraud here in Medicaid. So Medicaid obviously needs a really wide audit. And see, and that's how I look at our budget. I don't look at it as how can we tweak this. We don't have a revenue problem in this state. We actually do pretty good. We're a pretty rich state. Agriculture is really good. It's a spending problem. Even look at, what I've noticed everywhere I go, the roads are horrible. Infrastructure, bridges, potholes, and this is everywhere. Like I said, I've been to 85 counties. I haven't seen one that looked good. And the reason for that is, say I'm a local village manager or mayor and I want to fix my roads. I would go to the local government distributive fund. This was when they invented income tax. The promise was that all the municipalities would get 10% of that global income tax, and it would be by per capita. How big you are is how much of it you would get. But it was supposed to be out of a 10% bucket of the global income tax. Now that's down to almost 6%, and J.B. Pritzker is talking about freezing it and not, leaving it at that level. So now, as a mayor, village mayor, and that money says it's solely for road repair and infrastructure. So that's what it's to be used for. So now locally, they're having a hard time coming up with money to do road repairs, infrastructure fixes. That's job creation too. Those are construction jobs, paving jobs, plumbing jobs, all that kind of stuff come from that stimulation. So now, okay, I'm a village manager and I don't have the money to fix my own roads. I'm going to ask the state, you have money to do that. Can you help? Now you're in your motor vehicle tax fund. So if you look, there's, I think, a 2016 amendment that said that was solely for road repair infrastructure. And I think they even put in extra language that said this is so no money can be diverted from this fund. Well, I think it was 4 or 5 months ago, J.B. Pritzker diverted $308 million out of that account. So when I questioned it, I was told that the reason that they did it was they were sweeping interest, and that's different. They can do that. So that's great, but you know how you generate $308 million of interest? By not spending the capital. So that money's just being frozen, so it generates interest that can be swept, that's paying for the illegal immigrants. And when I see the misuse of our funds like that, so now you see our dilapidated streets and towns and lack of job stimulation for all the jobs that would create, that's a gross misuse of the funds. And that's pretty much rampant. I know there's like some aldermen that make like 140, and I saw some of their assistants make like 220,000. So you make almost 100,000 more than your boss. So in government, government's different than regular business, right? So like a business can hire a man and woman and actually pay the man more than the woman. I couldn't pay him a nickel different because it's government. There's things called job codes. A job code for government is a code that's affixed to your position. A policeman, a nurse, healthcare worker, construction worker, whatever the government job is, there's a job code assigned to it. And then within your institute, There's several other job codes, like for a sergeant, a lieutenant, a chief. They're all different. Now, the job code correlates to the skills, knowledge, abilities, training, or certifications you need to have that. And then they give you a pay range. You have a floor and a ceiling, and you have to pay them with that range. You can't go under, you can't go over, but you have to be within that range. So we need, and I know everyone likes to use the word Doge. It's a cute word, but for me, I look at this more of a forensic audit. I'm a forensic auditor. I audit accounts. Even after, I built that digital forensics laboratory for a reason. It was just for finding people in financial crimes and investigating. I would love to take those tools and apply them to the government computers that exist in Illinois, where they're doing all their payroll, because the money is being spent improperly through headcount. And headcount's a big one. Again, people are the most expensive thing. If you're not paying and that's, it kind of started with the DEI stuff. Remember the air traffic controllers, where there were planes almost crashing because they had untrained people because they were hiring them under DEI principles, which kind of fly in the face of the job code, because the job code delineates you have to have a certain experience or certification or training or education to have that job, and that's what delineates the pay. That's rampantly out of control. And we need first a forensic audit of headcount globally for all Illinois state employees. That has to come first. Then again, we have to look at the NGOs. We have to look at the fraud in Medicaid. Then we have to look at other things that are being misused, like contracts and bidding awards, and not taking the lowest bidder, and doing erroneous sole sources. All of that has to be audited. That's what a real Doge would look like. Job task analysis on your head count, full audit of payroll, full audit of any money coming out of the government, adding audit and review abilities onto every contract that you do. I think all of those things globally would allow us to lower a lot of the damage that's been done and start spending our money properly.
We hear often a lot, particularly from conservatives, about Illinois property taxes being high, which they definitely are, but they also fund local government. So how, if you were governor, would you go about reducing them if you were to, but also keep local governments funded?
So with what I just delineated out in the budget, we're probably talking about, I would say, up to $15 billion of fraud or misuse. Let's say misuse. That would allow a large portion of property taxes to come down. I also think, though, going back to our infrastructure and job creation, I think, and so much of our land is agriculture. We should be looking at coal. Now there is a clean way to create coal products now, and it's through these scrubbers. And scrubbers create a clean energy source. We're sitting on over 500 years of coal in Illinois, all over the land. We should be, instead of, we regulate lack of ability to use our own coal, but we haven't changed our behaviors of how much we use. So we're importing it when we could be mining our own coal. Again, more job creation, a revenue source, and then be bringing those profits to our consumers to lower energy costs, and then export at a profit. And then let's talk about these solar panels that are on all the agriculture land. Now, those bleed technology, they atrophy, right? And after you've had solar panels long enough on your land, I've been told by the farming people that it can actually taint the land for up to 20 years. And here's another thing. If you sign a contract and you do a 20 or 30-year lease with the people who do these solar panels, if you, God forbid, die or sell your farm, they get first crack at it because they're a vested leaser of the land. So you could actually lose your land to whoever's leasing it by doing that. Now, instead of the solar panels, what they should be doing is growing a lot of corn and a lot of soybeans. Now you take those things together and it makes ethanol. And now you're looking at biofuel and jet fuel, which is a very expensive commodity that we could export and really bolster our economy. And again, all this stuff needs workers, needs farmers, need people to tend it, to refine the fuel. All these things, these are job creations, fixing our roads. All these things stimulate the economy back in. But I am telling you, all these taxes and property tax rates, these are to pay for a population of people that weren't here 5 years ago. And when you import 700,000 people, you have to pay for them. So we're seeing these taxes come up. We're seeing misuse of our existing funds. We're seeing sweeping of accounts. And this is to pay for the problem that J.B. Pritzker's created with the immigration.
Staying along the theme of energy, the state passed the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, or CEJA as they call it, in 2021 to phase out fossil fuels for renewable energy. I'm guessing you're probably not a fan of it, given that you would like to continue down the path of coal. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, because you know what? Like I said, what they're not telling, and maybe I don't know. This is something I don't know how long they've had the scrubbers and how
carbon sequestration.
Yes, because by doing that, you're creating a clean energy source. Even the stuff they filter out is used as another energy source. So I think that our technology has brought coal back into a usable form. I know nuclear is going to be an option, but that's probably going to be about 8 years before those portable reactors are available. I think that solar and windmills have not done what they promised. There's such a small portion of the used megawatt pie when you look at it. And the turbines, too, there's harmonics. That's why you can't put them too close to housing. Those seals break and leak oil into the ground, and the largest reason for maintenance and fixing them is the rotors is from bird strikes on the blades. So I mean, none of that sounds really environmental to me. It's kind of like I said with the media branding, with the safety and sanctuary. This same kind of thing. They say energy and green, and they use these words, but in fact they're poisoning land. They have technology all over our farmland, when we could be growing, soy and corn and not harming our land and making the money that way.
Maybe last issue that I want to ask you about, do you think that the state of Illinois should have any role in potentially funding a new stadium for the Chicago Bears in the Chicagoland area?
Yeah, I think any way we can keep that team, we should. Again, it goes back to job creation. I mean, if we made a new stadium, do you know how many jobs that would create? It would be tourism, all the businesses that would come up around it. I think it would just generate so much revenue for us. I mean, the Bears are a popular football team. They don't always win, but they're very popular.
They had a good year this year.
Hey, they had a great year this year. But yes, I would support any way we could save the Bears.
Okay, and then I want to jump into some campaign questions while we have you. So Emerson College polling, which I've been asking everyone about at the start of January, has you in third place, well behind Darren Bailey, but I do want to note that 46% of voters said they were undecided. So how do you, as a candidate, stand out from the pack?
What I've noticed, truth be told, we've had probably about 8 debates. I feel that I strongly won all 8. One thing I do believe is that when you're thinking about who you're going to vote for, they probably should watch the debates and say who's going to be able to go on stage against J.B. Pritzker and have a very boisterous debate with him. And I'm just vying for that moment. I would love to get there and debate with J.B. Pritzker. I think I would perform better than anybody else. I believe that I'm the best public speaker out of the group by far. And that means a lot. You have to be able to convey your ideologies, your initiatives. You should have specificity in your answers. You should be, versed and studied. And I believe that is a big edge that I have on the other candidates.
And then, call me a skeptic, but do you think Illinois is actually winnable for a Republican in a statewide contest, especially given that it's a midterm election when the party in power nationally tends to struggle?
I actually do. And, my last election, a little over 3 years ago, I got 60,000 more votes Democrat votes than the highest vote-getting Democrat in DuPage County, which is the second biggest county in the state. Like I said, it's a 7-hour state, so it's really big, and I've been to 85 counties, but I'm right next to Chicago. I'm going to Chicago 3-4 times a week. And again, I've been doing this rehabilitation. Probably half the people in my correctional facility are Chicago residents. So I'm fairly well known in the city. So I've been going in the city where I know other candidates aren't going to go. I'm a cop, right? And I'll be honest, I'm typically armed, and I feel safe and secure going into some of the worst neighborhoods in the city. I don't have fear of talking to the citizens. And I think that makes a big difference. When they see me out there, and I have groups around me, and we're also trying to help the Avalon Regent in Chicago. I'm helping the owner there try to renovate that. Again, that'd be an amphitheater, pay-per-view, all that kind of stuff. That's what a governor should be doing, is looking at the infrastructure of the city and start looking at how to turn it around, bring jobs back, bring businesses back. I'm already doing that on my free time.
And maybe along those same lines, it seems like the big need for whatever Republican that emerges from this primary will be appealing to suburban and urban voters, particularly in the Chicagoland. How do you, go about that? Because, right, Bailey would have got beat in Cook County 73 to something in the 20% range the last time around in 2022.
So, what the interesting thing, I've been talking to a lot of the black population in Chicago has gone Trump. They've gone very conservative. And I can see why. You know what? Because I always want to know, give me my platform. I always tell people that. What is your big concerns? And in Chicago, they almost every time it's safety, 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 and safety. I mean, that's exactly how they say it. Those aren't my words. Those are words of people that I've talked to on the streets. And, and I'm not going to be racial here, but if two people that look like me get murdered in Nebraska, we're going to see it on the news for a month. If 42 black kids get shot in Chicago in a weekend, nobody seems to care. They think it's normal. And it drives me crazy that we're like, it's almost like a blind eye to the violence that's occurring in the city. But the residents sure know it's occurring, and that's why they want safety so much. I think this is the year where safety is going to prevail. I think people want to be safe. They don't want to, get carjacked. They don't want all these stores to be broken in. They're driving cars through storefronts now to steal ATM machines. And you know what is a unique thing for me? I used to kind of tease my dad because he was a policeman and I was a policeman. And I would say, Dad, you get robberies at noon. We don't get them in the daytime. I should have kept my mouth shut because now we get them in the daytime, just like everybody else. But I will say, here's where a cop has more value because you need an emergency manager. Like, take the street takeovers. Where they block off a street in the city and
for
they
a festival
do the
or
wheelies and then drive the cars in the
okay.
circles, almost hitting everybody,
Gotcha.
and blocking off the whole intersection. And under Brandon Johnson, he basically tells the Chicago cops, just watch, and it's a demonstration. That's not a demonstration. EMS can't get through, no fire, no ambulance, no cops. You might have to go pick up your kid from daycare. What we do, because they tried doing that when they started doing it in Chicago and DuPage. And the solution's easy. Two squad cars on top, 2 squad cars on the bottom, 2 squad cars on the left, 2 squad cars on the right, arrest everything in the middle, impound all the cars, and when mom and dad have to go pick up their cars from the impound lot, maybe they won't let their kids do this stupid stuff all the time. So we did that one time, and we've never had it occur in DuPage again. We listen to wiretaps too. And what do they say? Drug dealers, hey, come meet me here. No, that's DuPage County. I'm not going to do the drug deal there. Come over here to Cook County. And we hear that all the time when they get arrested. We have split towns like Burr Ridge or Clarendon Hills will be half in DuPage and half in Cook. It's the first thing people ask when they get arrested, which side of the line am I on? They don't want to be in DuPage County because while I do all this rehabilitation stuff and our recidivism rates came down, we're very tough on crime.
You were talking about earlier with the Safety Act about you would be a little more pragmatic in your approach to it. And unless something crazy happens, I'm imagining if you win the governorship, you'd need to be working with Democratic supermajorities in Springfield. So from a philosophical standpoint, how do you approach working with them to get legislation passed?
So I think the easiest way is to go back what those citizens tell me: safety, 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 safety. What I've learned is you have to get, the politicians don't matter. I'm telling you right now, their constituents matter, the people, because that's the ones that can put the pressure on them. Even I've learned as a conservative sheriff in a blue county, I've learned how to make sure people do the right thing or they're going to have to take the onus for it. Like, I wanted tasers. And I was told, no, Sheriff, you're not getting tasers. So they didn't want to do that. And it went through 2 rounds with my bureau chiefs trying to get it through finance and judicial public safety committees. And they were voted, I think it was 16-2 against on both votes. And when it was going to the final vote on county board, I stepped in for 30 seconds and just said, I just want everyone to know they're going on record today saying that you want the cops just to be able to shoot people with bullets. And 3 minutes later, I had my tasers. It went 16-2 the other way. You have to know how to couch your questions. You have to know how to make it somebody's responsibility if they don't vote the right way. You have to gain their constituents so they externally put pressure on them. That's how the political game in Chicago and DuPage County is played. It's the people. If you can get the people, I didn't want to go door to door and take people's guns. So I wrote a letter saying I wasn't going to. I was like the 60th sheriff to put a letter out on that, but they all focused on me, JB Sick, Sean Caston, all the state reps and everybody after me wanting to, fire me and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? Then the county board member comes, or they're going to admonish me at the county board. And, they brought their people that were, going to help the citizens. And they got about, I'd say maybe a dozen people. And with no solicitation from me whatsoever, over 300 people came that were pro 2A and flooded that county board. And I didn't have to say a word. I didn't have to say a word that whole time because I knew what the people wanted, because I'm the guy who goes to all the events all the time, just like I've been to 45 counties. And that's where I learned all the stuff about biofuel and solar panels, because like in these vessels, I would have a Second Amendment executive advisory group. I would have an agriculture advisory group. What I think the politicians fail to do, and that's how you win them, that's how you get their constituents, take all the people who vote for the Democrats and say, I want you to come in on an advisory panel and tell me what you want from your government. And then if it's reasonable, that part becomes part of your job. Now you affect that. So now I'm just doing what your people want me to do. And that's how real politics is done, not dirty politics.
Closing message here. Why are you the right choice in the Republican primary?
Well, you know what? Again, I believe in God. I am a conservative policeman. And I always say policeman because even though I'm conservative, it's like you might hate me, but I'm going to help you anyway. And having that outlook as somebody who's in law enforcement, somebody who's been an executive level in law enforcement, somebody who's had 25 of the years in the financial area of big government, I think I already know the terrain. I know the people. I work with Cook County and Chicago all the time. I'm getting to know all the people out here. I am that person. I go out and I talk to people ad nauseum. And my platform, everything you hear me say, none of these are my ideas. These are ideas that all of the citizens, after going for 11 months to talk to a bazillion people, I've lost track of how many I've talked to. I feel like I go to 3 weddings a day. But talking to the people is so important. You will find out what they want if you just talk to the people.
And if there are people that are curious about you or your campaign and they want to learn more, where can they do that online?
It'll be Mendrick, the number 4, Governor, 2026.com.
Amazing. Well, James, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
James is the third of 4 Republicans running in the governor's race that we've spoken to. We're hoping to sit down with Rick Heidner on a future episode. Politically Speaking is a product of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis. Until next time, so long.